What is up, baseball fans? Kris Jardine, aka Snaggle J here. Sorry for the couple of minutes of delay, but when you have such a loaded stream of awesomeness, when it's not just me, sometimes that's information the internet is absolutely incapable of processing. Welcome to This Week of Perfect Team, episode 40, and I'm very happy to welcome to this monumental episode of This Week of Perfect Team the newest member of the Diamond Level World Series Club, Mr. Rich Grisham. Rich, how are you, buddy?
I'm just doing tremendously well. Thank you, Kris. I appreciate that. Yes, for the first time ever, crowned a champion. Have a great team, and it was a blast. And I stayed up way past my bedtime, and it was a lot of fun.
So, now, for those of you who have not seen, Rich has been occasionally streaming on Thursday nights, having the community. You guys have been helping partake in building up Rich's team. Rich, how has the experience been like of not relying on the community, but using community feedback to help build your team?
Completely relying, Kris. Not, I mean, completely, but I mean that in the best way.
This is your win, chat. This is your win.
It is, because the advice and the discussion, just fantastic. And it's a blast to have the conversation and to look at the team and to say, all right, what do we attack? Are we going on offense? Are we going defense? Are we going pitching? Are we going starting pitching? Are we not? I learn so much every week about Perfect Team to learn, right? It's not something you start playing today and you understand everything about it. There's multiple levels and layers to it. And it's just the best interacting with everybody. And the last 2 weeks have been pickups that made this championship happen.
Right.
To it a little bit more. But the best thing is just the community. They're amazing, and we have a great time, and they're very, very supportive.
I think there's something to be said about, being able to aggregate, opinions in that kind of forums. Like I always find it interesting, like even when I jump in the Discord and I go to the roster advice page and I'm having a hard time deciding between player X and player Y, and then by the time it's all said and done and I read everybody's feedback, I'm on to like player double Q, who I never considered originally in the first place.
Yep.
But the guys in the Discord are just like, man, like, why are you considering these two guys when you could consider that guy?
Right.
It's kind of one of those things where, it's really, really
a great example.
It's just interesting, right? Like about how we can do this sort of thing where we can, get this kind of feedback. Sorry, I'm clicking on something.
Is a pickup I made 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Has been absolutely outstanding. It's a 94 overall Russell. He stabilized the pitching staff in a way nobody else has before, and he stepped up again big time. And that was directly from a community suggestion where I never would have really considered Rick Russell. Tremendous. Won 18 games in our championship year, and a great example of exactly that kind of thing happening. I just go right to show me the top cards that I can afford to look, dive, search, all those kind of things. It's been great.
Well, and now you get the pleasure of going back to the Perfect Leagues, where hopefully you can hang this time, stick it out with the rest of us who have been in Perfect League for, double digits of seasons now, and then add that's the big piece now, Rich. You got to add that Perfect Team the Perfect League championship to the trophy case.
Yeah, and I don't mean this to sound whatever, right? But perfect now, I think, for a long, long time, because my team is too good pieces. It was missing Rick Russell. It was missing Barry Larkin, who I picked up on Thursday for me to the championship. I mean, this Barry Larkin, Diamond 97 Barry Larkin, was just fantastic. And it was also Lenny Dykstra, 1990 special edition Lenny Dykstra, and Diamond 91. Fantastic. And those two editions, again, coming directly from the community live during the show, in addition to the really good roster I already have with Tation as a Diamond Seaver and a Diamond Bob Gibson, Gold Greg Maddox, the Diamond Russell, and a Diamond old timer Harry Breachin. So, it's amazing how a couple little additions will make a big change. But I'm back in perfect for a while, so now that no time like now to start thinking about it, right? Like before, I couldn't compete in the perfect leagues. I had never won a championship. I didn't have the right pieces. It wasn't until last year that I really got all the right pieces. So now it's like, okay,
now you're ready. Now you're ready to rock and roll.
Right. If I grind it out, can I get one? The chances are, I mean, it can happen. That's what I'm saying. It can happen. And now what's great is that because I finally it's like I finally won that title, so I can relax. And now whether I get there or not isn't deal. And so it just sort of validates everything too. Yeah. So now I can look forward to a nice grind and again work with the community Thursday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be more regular, and within the next 5 to 6 weeks, it will absolutely be weekly. Going to grind it out, and there's a lot of years between now, and the next wave. So why not, right?
Yep.
Plus,
hey, as the great
to start a second team too. I've always been a one-team guy.
Yeah, me too.
Everybody has 3 teams. I get that, but I'm the old guy who's just like a one-team guy. I also on the stream can start a second team. That could be fun too.
Yeah, I only have the one team as well. I've been wrestling with whether or not I want to start a second team. I think I'm going to. I haven't completely locked down a theme yet. But I'm definitely going to be started because my first team now is kind of fleshed out, like to the point where my upgrades are more tinkering and my bigger upgrades are few and far between just because of who I have, and unless I get really lucky in a pack or something like that. But listen, I'm glad you're back at perfect. As the great basketball player Kevin Garnett once said, anything is possible. So one of us eventually, maybe someday, could win a perfect league tier title. Not gonna hold my breath on my case, but that's a different story. Different story for a different day. Now,
it is mathematically possible.
Mathematically possible. Most weeks, I have a 1 in 30 chance of winning the World Series. Except for if I get stuck in one of the outside leagues, and then it's 1 in 24 or 1 in 22, which is even better. Now, how fitting is it for you to be on this episode of the show where you're unveiling your very own set of content that I have taken it upon myself to dub as the Mighty Mets? I wonder what the set's going to contain. I'm even wearing a Mets hat. I'm totally into your set. I'm on brand. I'm on theme. How fitting is it that you won the World Series yesterday? You're here. I mean, we've had this planned out for a couple of weeks now. It was actually originally supposed to be last week, and then we bumped it to this week because I just had that feeling, Rich, that you were going to win the last week's perfect team diamond level World Series. So it's all worked out in the end.
It's amazing. You're prescient. Your planning, as always, is on point and extremely timely.
All right. Well, listen, now there's really no sense in that's definitely not the screen that I wanted up. In beating around the bush, Rich, let's jump in. We're going to talk about your content. I want you to let the guys know why you picked each particular card. Now, Rich, I threw a bit of a curveball into your content set here. And because, I felt like it was lacking in the Frank Thomas department.
Right.
Now, everyone's thinking, I know, right? Frank Thomas, Mets. How does that make any sense whatsoever? It's not the Frank Thomas I'm talking about. Our first card tonight, 1962 Frank Thomas from the original expansion New York Mets. In 1962, the Little Hurt? I don't know. Hit 266, 329, 496, 34 bombs, 94 RBIs. Rich, before I mentioned him, did you know that there was a second Frank Thomas?
Oh, absolutely, because as a Mets fan, there's such a lore and a nostalgia about that 1962 Mets team and their height of well, I mean, it was a team that just never had a chance, and for being so bad, and that's what makes the 1962 season for Frank Thomas so extraordinary. 1962 was not an era of big bombs and lots of home runs. And one of the worst lineups ever seen up to that point, hit 34 home runs and had 94 RBIs. That is extraordinary. And this is a guy who is no stranger. It's twice he hit over 30 home runs and drove in 100 runs and was in the mid-20s in home runs many, many, many times. So just an extraordinary season in that, to hit that well and to drive in that many runs and have that much power in that era. Playing in that lineup, it's almost impossible that it happened.
He was one of the very few reasons people had to actually go watch the Mets in 1962. Speaking of which, can you confirm or deny that you were a Mets season ticket holder in 1962?
Okay. My lawyers have advised me not to go into this kind of stuff live on the air. So
okay,
we'll just keep that.
Wait, we will move on to card number 2. 1991 Hojo Howard Johnson. My man, Howard Johnson, led the National League in home runs with 38 and RBIs with 117. Also led the National League in sacrifice flies with 15, which I decided to leave off this graphic for reasons that I can't explain. Very interesting card here. 83 home run power, 88 speed. So this was kind of the latter end of Howard Johnson's tenure with the Mets. A lot of people really point to like his 88, 89 seasons for being like super high end. But then all of a sudden he gets to 91 and dude just starts, hitting yaks all over town. Rich, why was Howard Johnson an integral part of your set?
Howard Johnson was one of the most extraordinary baseball players I ever saw in that he could do everything. He could field, he could hit for power, he could run. Right, he would steal bases. He stole 30 bases that year too, in addition to hitting 38 home runs and 117 RBI. That's ridiculous, right? This is one of the more impressive offensive seasons in New York Mets history. Pete Alonso's incredible season. He's gonna hit 50, Kris.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was like, here comes an Alonso brag.
Hey, Kris, did you know that I watched Pete Alonso win the home run derby in person this past year?
Rich, I was there.
Oh, right.
Rich, I was sitting 2 seats away from you. Yes, I do remember Pete Alonso winning the home run derby. Yes,
that was an interesting night. But no, this is just an amazing season. And as somebody who was in the thick of living in the New York area, when I say area, like I wasn't living in New York City or right outside it, but the television and radio and newspaper were all New York centric. And as a Mets fan, that's how you experience stuff back in the days before the internet in the 90s. So that was a very tumultuous season for the Mets. So Howard Johnson's, at least from my perspective, his incredible prowess that year didn't feel to me as appreciated as it should have been. And looking back on it, like I say, one of the most extraordinary seasons in New York Mets history.
Yes, and low key, one of my favorite players in RBI Baseball 4.
Oh man,
Howard Johnson was absolutely OP in RBI Baseball 4 for the Sega Genesis. I'm just saying, you couldn't stop him, and it was based off of this 1991 season. Let's keep it moving on here, and we're gonna go to 1984. Jesse Orosco. I think at this point in his career, he was 68 years old. Pretty good season, 10-6, 2.59 ERA, 31 saves, 88 Ks, and 87 innings pitched. Rich, what's the draw here? I mean, obviously Orosco played parts of 78 different Major League Baseball seasons. Why does this particular one ring for you?
Well, first of all, Jesse Orosco, the pitcher, was on the mound when the Mets won the pennant in 1986.
He literally pitched in every Mets season that's ever existed, Rich.
And he also was on the mound when they won the World Series. So right then and there, the guy who closed out series is up there. And again, this goes in terms of unappreciated. Relief pitching was very different in the 1980s. These guys pitched in different ways. They would pitch multiple innings. I'm not saying, by the way, today is worse or back then was better. It's just different, right? And Jesse Orosco was a workhorse. He was a reliable pitcher who did really well. He was much, much, much more than Doug Sisk. Like Orosco and Doug Sisk were sort of Orosco was the closer, Sisk was the setup guy. Not exactly so determined because, again, it wasn't so cut and dry back then. But Sisk would always put a couple guys on with walks and stuff like that. Orosco was much more steady. A beloved Met, an extraordinary guy. Had Mets teams and then got to stay with them all the way through winning the championship in '86. So love the guy. In 1984 was a very good year for him. He didn't pitch as many innings as he had in years past, but he still got like 87 innings.
1984 was a pretty good year in general. I mean, like I said, any year that ends in R is a year that Jesse Orosco has made some sort of appearance in. The guy literally pitched till he was 98 years old. I think he's still pitching somewhere right now. I'm kidding. No, you know what? I was always a big Orosco fan. He is. I mean, lefties are extremely valuable. Now we have reached that point of the show, ladies and gentlemen, where we are going to start up our giveaway. A couple of prizes of 10,000 perfect points apiece! Exclamation point ticket in the chat gets you in. We will draw it at the end of the stream, as always. I put the text above my head in case you forget how to do it. Let's move on now to the latter half of Rich's set here. Next up, we have 2015 Jeurys Familia. 2-2, 43 saves, 185 ERA, a 1 even whip, 78 innings, 86 strikeouts. Rich. Jeurys Familia was a pretty dominant force the back half of the Mets bullpen for a couple of years there, 15, 16 especially. Why did he make the cut for your 6-card set?
I'll tell you this, 2015 was an extraordinary season to be a Mets fan. Even though the Mets fell short that year, they won the pennant, but they did not win the World Series. They lost to the Kansas City Royals in a very tight series with a couple of extraordinary swings that, had they gone a different way, would have swung the series a different way. Not complaining, that's any baseball series, but it was good. But anyway, even with that disappointment, 2015 was the second most fun for me all time, because it came out of nowhere, really. The Mets had not been good, and again, controversial and unpleasant for several years. And Jeurys Familia was, yes, he struggled at the very, very end and in the World Series, but he never have made it to the pennant without him being extraordinary. And so, like, I have a really wonderful feeling all about 2015. I have that same about Familia that year. He was great. He wasn't perfect, but he was really good a whole lot.
It's funny because, I mean, as a lifelong Jays fan, I've never had any ill feelings towards the Mets. I think they're obviously my favorite New York team. I've enjoyed some of their postseason runs that they had. There was what, 04 was the Beltran run, or no? No, that was 04 was something different. Never mind. I got my wires are crossed here. But
That's okay.
they've had a couple different runs over the last,
Yes.
20 years. And
much fewer than years in which they did not make a run. Those years far outnumber the ones when they did. But they've had a half dozen or so in the last 25 years, probably.
I just feel like when they've had those runs, they've been a very, very interesting team to watch. And again, Familia was one of those guys that it was always interesting when he was in the game. Because, while he was, for the most part, very good, he did have the tendency to go, like every Mets closer in the history of the franchise, completely off the rails at the blink of a hat. But yeah, no, solid choices so far. Next up, this is now not in no way am I slighting the headliner of this set, but not gonna lie, this is probably my favorite card of your set so far. And that is 1990 Frank Viola. I absolutely loved Frank Viola in the late 80s. This 1990 version is backed by a 20-12 record with a 2.67 ERA, 249 innings pitched, 182 Ks. Rich, I loved Frank Viola when he was with the Twins. I loved him for the short time he was with the Mets. 1990 was his first season with the Mets. What an acquisition that was for the Mets to get Frank Viola.
Completely agree. It was really exciting. By that point, it had been 5 years. It had won series, and they're on pleasantness and eight. Then you had the Chip series in 80. As a Mets fan, we're committed to winning. We're doing this because Frank Viola was an ordinary winning pitcher who had, and I this off the top of my head, on at least one Cy Young before he came to the Mets and was on the '87 championship team.
Yeah.
On the Cy Young, I don't know, but anyway, he was well. And was a really, the Mets didn't do what they should have done, which is make another run on a pennant. But that was a great year, and again, he was it was fun to watch him pitch. He was just so good, so good.
I think it was, like I said, again, a lot of my early Frank Viola memories come from RBI baseball games where I think when you, especially in that late 80s, I think the first RBI baseball was based off the 86 or the 87 season. But a lot of those late 80s teams, the Minnesota Twins were really good. I mean, the Minnesota Twins were a very, very good team in the late 80s and early 90s. They ended up winning the World Series in 1991. And Frank Viola was a big part of those teams. And I think when he and like 5 other guys got traded to the Mets for like nothing, I think they really thought it. I think it really thought it was going to make a huge difference for them. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. But I mean, for Viola himself, he was able to play for another 5-6 seasons and really pitched at a high level for sure. So now, last but not least, Rich's headliner choice for his mighty Mets set, 1988, the Doc himself, the original Doc, I guess, Dwight Gooden. Rich, the floor is yours.
Oh, again, this is all about just when you're a certain age and you love baseball, come along. They inspire you in ways that it's hard to describe. And when Dwight Gooden came along in '84, to a downtrodden team that now had all of a sudden Keith Hernandez and Barry, and now this guy Dwight Gooden shows up, and he's just extraordinary. It signaled the dawn of a great to be a fan, which obviously culminated in '86, '88. The Mets NLCS loss to the Dodgers just never should have happened. That was a team, and Dwight Gooden wasn't 1985 Gooden, but he was still really good, and he threw a lot of innings, and he won a lot of games, and he really had it together that year. And it would have been interesting to see if the Mets, could have beaten the Dodgers and gotten to the World Series. I think, that this team was the one that got away, the '88.
Well, and that was going to be my follow-up thing is it's so different if you go to Baseball Reference and you look up Dwight Gooden and you look at his 1985, which a lot of people regard as one of the best starting pitching seasons that we've seen in the last 40 years. It was
I watched it. I watched all of that year. That was the best I've ever seen anybody.
And you look at
talking current day.
You look at just 3 years later, Dwight Gooden's a totally different guy. He's he's a control-based pitcher. You look at some of the stats from this season. He had career lows, I believe, in walk rate, career lows in home runs allowed. He only allowed like 8 home runs this season. He's a completely different guy from the guy that he was in '85, where he was literally rear back, here's a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, good luck. Like, he completely, you would say, a lot of people would say, he turned himself from a thrower into a pitcher. And, it's funny because when I looked at it, being the condescending, dink that I could be from time to time, I looked at your set and I thought, oh, here's another Dwight Gooden. And I'm like, and then I'm like, well, I do my research, as I often do, and I said, man, this Dwight Gooden is literally the polar opposite of the other Dwight Gooden. The Dwight Gooden who didn't strike out as many guys, but he kept the ball in the ballpark, and in my opinion, is a great topper for your set, Rich. I think you did a great job.
Oh, thank you. And you, sir, did a great job, because you put in an extraordinary amount of work in making this entertaining, and not only this, but every single week. So thank you, because this is your work that results in all of this.
I did very little on this one. I love when we do these, bringing people on the show, the TJ set, the Matt set, the Rich set, because it means slightly less work for me, and I still get the same fun and pleasure of presenting it. So ladies and gentlemen, here is a look at Rich's content set, available in Perfect Team packs right now. As always, guys, remember, if you bought packs before the show, you haven't opened them yet, you still have a chance to grab one of these 6 fine cards right here. The cards are only generated when you open the pack. We have 1991 Howard Johnson, 1984 Jesse Orosco, 1990 Frank Viola, 1986 Dwight Gooden, 2015 Jeurys Familia, and 1962 Frank Thomas. Rich, people in the chat are wondering what Perfect League you are in.
I will tell you in about 10 seconds, because I just had to download the latest upgrade. I am in 8.
In what?
438.
438. All right, guys, we're going to shut the giveaway down in about 10 seconds. So exclamation point ticket in the chat. Last chance you guys have to get in on it. Giving away a couple prizes of 10,000 perfect points apiece. As always, if your name gets drawn, it'll show up in the chat. Please whisper me right here on Twitch or message me in the Discord. Username in the proper capitalization and the team name, and I'll get you those points lickety split. So we are going to shut the giveaway down. The giveaway is closed. Hold your fire. Hold your fire. Let's get the old MLG horn locked up here. Congratulations to KL Witt. KL Witt and Almighty Dog. Almighty T Dog. Congratulations, KL Witt and Almighty T Dog. You guys have picked yourself up 10,000 perfect points for Perfect Team. Like I said, drop me a whisper. Hit me in the Discord. Username, team name. I'll get you those points lickety split. Rich, thank you so much for taking time out of your extremely busy schedule for you to be able to put this content set together and join me here. Chat loves guests here on This Week at Perfect Team, so I do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to swing by and join us.
Hey, let me say thank you to the amazing Out of the Park community, to the people that are here on This Week in Perfect Team every week. You guys are amazing. Doing any of this if it weren't for all of you. Those aren't empty words. That's true. The team and the championship and the stream that I do is just a small part of that. For having me, this was fantastic. I love this image. This image is just the best. Thank you for that.
Except for it's got my ugly mug in the upper left-hand corner.
It tops it off.
You'd probably prefer I toss it, one of these, and then you have the nice clean look without my face on it. But that's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for stopping by for another episode of This Week at Perfect Team. As always, make sure you guys hit that follow button up at the top of the screen. We are live here on the channel Monday nights, Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, Thursday nights. We're hitting all the days of the week that we can, providing you guys with some great live content. TJ is going to be by tomorrow night with his Redbird Rising franchise. Wednesday night, the franchise hockey manager guys are going to be here doing their thing. Thursday night, you're going to get the Snaggle and the Mets, fitting enough, franchise at 8 p.m. Eastern, and then Rich is going to stop by whenever he can at 10 p.m. Eastern on Thursday nights to showcase his perfect team. He's going to be here this Thursday, chat. You heard it. Hold him to it, guys. As always, guys, make sure you guys follow us all over the internet. Facebook.com/OTP Baseball, Twitter.com/OTP Baseball, and Twitter.com/OTP Perfect Team. You can also find our forums over at OTPdevelopments.com/board. Make sure you guys jump in to the Discord. Over 4,000 members strong now. Discord.gg/OOTP. All kinds of wonderful ways to interact with us and members of the OOTP community. If you guys are looking to pick up your very own copy of Out of the Park Baseball or Franchise Hockey Manager, head over to OOTPdevelopments.com/buy and find links to our web store, Steam, and you can also get OOTP Baseball on EA's Origin platform and the Mac App Store. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming by for another episode of This Week at Perfect Team. I have been Kris Jardine, a.k.a. Snaggle J, alongside Rich Grisham himself. And until next time, keep swinging for the fences.